Hello, I'm Olivia Mattis, greeting you on behalf of the Sousa Mendez Foundation. I'm so glad you've joined us today. Our foundation honors a hero, a rescuer of World War II, who saved perfect strangers when he was the Portuguese consul general in Bordeaux, France, and he paid a very heavy price for his action. My own family was saved by this hero, and I'm forever in his debt. The women that we are honoring today paid an even greater price. They paid the ultimate price. And we are here to honor their memories and remember their names. You've seen a beautiful film today by the filmmaker NOA AHARONI, who is with us.
Hi, Lisa.
And you will also hear from the cousin of one of the heroes, Róza Robota, her cousin Alan Mallenbaum, founder of the Róza Robota Foundation, is also here to tell you his own story of discovery. Moderating today's program will be Dr. Judd Newborn, who is our go-to expert on all stories of rescue and resistance during World War II. He will formally introduce our guests and he will frame the discussion. He'll have his own opening remarks, and then we'll hear from NOA AHARONI, then we'll hear from Alan Mallenbaum. Later, you will have an opportunity to ask your own questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions after seeing this film. Please type those questions into the chat box. We don't recognize raised hands, so I'm afraid you do have to type out your questions. And I'm sure that Dr. Newborn, Judd Newborn, will get to as many of your questions as he can. And in any case, all of your questions will be shared with our speakers. And so if there's anything that they don't get to, then perhaps they can answer some of the questions afterwards if you tell us, how to get in touch with you. So, without further ado, Judd Newborn, take it away.
Thank you very much, Olivia. I'm always delighted to be part of the Sousa Mendez Foundation programs, as well as to give some of my own programs for you. And I want to tell everybody today, our program presents a signal event in Holocaust history, one that is fascinating, tragic, and inspiring. Although Holocaust scholars know and have long admired the story of Róza Robota and the Auschwitz-Birkenau Sondercommando Revolt of October 7, 1944, it is unknown to the general public. This program hopes to help correct that. Now, we may not have heard of it, but when it actually happened, every prisoner saw or heard about it. And 3 months later, on January 6, 1945, when 4 of the women integral to it were executed, and especially their leader, Róza Robota, every prisoner knew about it because they were all eyewitnesses to these tragic executions, as our guest Alan Mallenbaum, cousin of Róza, will relate. These tragic hangings took place just 2 weeks before the SS began evacuating the camp in death marches, and just 3 weeks before the Soviet army liberated the camp on January 27th. The irony of that, and if only they had waited. Among the executed was Estera Wajcblum. Her little sister, Anna, traumatically, was among those who had to watch. Today, Anna's daughter, Anna Heilman, is actually in the audience with us watching. By now, those following the Sousa Mendez Foundation programs know that contrary to widespread beliefs about Jewish passivity, Jews actually resisted the Nazis in every form known to humankind, and brilliantly. They did so despite impossible odds that no other country or group of people in the Nazi sway had to face and overcome. One of the most astounding examples of resistance are the revolts in 3 of the 6 main death camps, Sobibor, Treblinka, and Auschwitz-Birkenau itself. Auschwitz-Birkenau was, of course, the vast killing center of the Auschwitz camp complex, the place where the SS selected Jews for life or death at its notorious train ramp. The camp had 4 separate gas chambers and a crematoria. Each were separated from each other and manned by a Sonderkommando, a special squad of prisoners, whose excruciating double-binded duty was to remove the bodies of their brethren from the gas chambers and convey them to the crematoria ovens. Because the SS considered this a top-secret operation, although all camp prisoners learned the truth sooner or later, the SS sequestered the gas chambers, the crematoria, and each Sonderkommando from the rest of the camp. And they went further. Each squad was only permitted to live for roughly 3 months, after which they themselves were consigned to the flames, to be replaced by a fresh but also temporary squad of prisoner slaves. So cut off, there was almost no reason to expect these prisoners could organize and launch any kind of resistance, whether effective and practical or symbolic. Essential to the operation was Róza Robota and 3 other courageous women, along with a score of other Jewish women who all worked in a Nazi munitions factory. These women risked everything to smuggle out Schwarzpulver, gunpowder, over months in tiny, ingeniously hidden amounts. Róza was born in 1921 and had been an active member of the Hashomer Hatzair, the left-wing Zionist youth movement, which encouraged Aliyah to their homeland in Palestine and the creation of kibbutzim. When the Nazis invaded Poland, she went into the underground of Hashomer Hatzair, in the place where she was ghettoized, and this activism was helpful for her later. It prepared her to take on a leading role in organizing the revolt. Now, what motivated the women and the men of the Sonderkommandos, the special squad, in particular squad number 4, what motivated them? They were the most double-binded of all Holocaust prisoners, victims, survivors, in the very center of the Holocaust hell. This last Sonderkommando needed somehow to break out of that double bind and do something active and daring, no matter how difficult it was, whether practical or symbolic, to reclaim their humanity. They thereby left a legacy for all Jews and for all humankind. Now, we have 2 extraordinary guests today. Alan Eliyahu Malenbaum discovered later in life, as he'll tell, that he is a close cousin of Róza Robota. Since 1994, when he discovered that she was his second cousin, he has been a researcher and educator on Holocaust resistance. Alan has an Italian doctoral degree from the University of Padua. He has retired from a career as a marketing and advertising executive in the chemical and pharmaceutical industries. Along the way, he fought for Jewish causes in the JDL, the Jewish Defense League, early on, where it was he who coined the phrase, "never again." In 1968, Meir Kahane, the controversial figure, later published a book in 1972 called Never Again, and thereby spread the slogan that Alan had coined. Alan also founded, as you heard, the Róza Robota Foundation, the Jewish Survival Legion, the Long Island Genealogical Federation, and other things. Alan is a proud Korean War veteran, as well as a veteran of Jewish veterans of wars, and he is quite an extraordinary human being. At age 93, he is going strong and continuing his mission. Indeed, I have to mention that he pulled together, amazingly, a 50th anniversary at Auschwitz-Birkenau, commemorating the Sonderkommando Revolt and Róza Robota and the other women. That was an extraordinary activity. Our other honored guest is NOA AHARONI. She is an award-winning filmmaker known for her compelling documentaries and storytelling. Her film that you just saw or will see by tomorrow is SABOTAGE, and it was made for Israeli TV. Her earlier documentary, Shadows, explores the complex legacy of the Holocaust through the experience of second generation. It garnered a lot of attention, and it premiered at festivals all over the place, very major ones. And it earned her a nomination for the Israeli Academy Award for Best Documentary. It also received the Best Documentary Film Award at the Israeli Documentary Awards. Her debut feature film, By Summer's End, was also recognized with a Distribution Award and an Israeli Academy Award, further shadowing her talents. NOA has a new series happening on Israeli TV. It's on women heroes, and there's going to be segments and more segments, and it's going to reveal a great deal about how women, often unsung, resisted in the Holocaust. So now, as our first speaker, let's welcome Noa. And Noa, I hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Jad. Thank you very much. I'm very, very excited to be here today and speak about a little bit about how I made this film, Sabotage. I'm going to say how I directed this film and also the idea of reenactment this film, because it happened a long time ago, and how do you reenact something that has been so long ago? So all of this I'm going to say right after the first clip.
Sabotage, Sabotage, das ist ein Verbrechen gegen das Deutsche Reich. Ein Akt der Sabotage, und dafür gibt es nur eine Strafe: den Tod. Kriminelle Verschwörer haben das Krematorium hier gesprengt. Das Schießpulver für dieses Verbrechen wurde von Terroristen aus der Munitionsfabrik geschmuggelt. Ihre Exekution wird als
Estasia!
So first of all, I'm going to address the question, how did I get to this subject? Because this is an unknown subject. I never heard about it until the producer, Levi Zini, came to me with this amazing and unheard of story. And what happened is that, you know, in Israeli TV, every year we have the Holocaust Day, and we preview new films, Holocaust films, of course, and every year we need to seek for new stories that we didn't hear of. So my producer wanted to make a film about the Eichmann trial, and he was watching hours and hours of the Eichmann trial. And then he heard all of a sudden about a testimony about Róza Robota and about the underground resistance. And he said, wait a minute, this is news to me. I never heard about this story. I never heard of Róza Robota before. And then he started digging and found out that it was a very huge event in Auschwitz. Everybody knew about it. Everybody talked about it. But this is the question. How come in Israel or even in the world, we didn't hear about this story? So then he thought that because it's about women underground, and he thought maybe the director should be a woman. And then he came to me, which I'm very glad he did, because I really, really cherish this subject and this event. And while I was watching testimonies and stuff and reading researches, I came across the testimony of Anna Heilman, Wajcblum, and she was extraordinary. She was so articulate, and she was a great storyteller. And I thought we should put her on the screen, her and her friends that have been in the camps, that have been in the story, and not just a memory agent like Ariella, her daughter, or other people. I thought that they had to give them the stage, the spotlight. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. And then there's another question. Now, there's a lot of testimonies, but how do you reenact the story? How do you make it accessible? How do you make it interested? So then I thought maybe I'm not going to like recreate Auschwitz, because, you know, I'm not Spielberg. I don't have the funds, but also I don't think I can do it, because it's really something that it's unimaginable, and I don't want to reenact Auschwitz. So then I thought maybe I would just take 2 actors and like put them on a like black limbo or something like that. But I think maybe it's too theatrical for television. So little by little, I became more and more intrigued about animation. And then when I thought about the animation and I found the right person to animate it, we thought together that it should be black and white because of the times that television was in black and white, and also that it should be very abstract and not so particular. We don't want the details. We just want the audience to have emotion feelings towards the animation. So that's what we wanted to do. So what is important in the animation is the events and the storytelling. And when I was thinking about telling this story, I was thinking about action movie, because I couldn't even imagine writing such a story. It's like unbelievable story. It's beyond imagination. So I didn't need to do anything, just to tell the story. And so in that sense, when I thought it should be an action film, it became very clear to me that it's going to be really, really emotional and also stressful, like it was in real life. So now we'll see the second clip.
I believe it's a mindset. You either tell yourself that you're going to die with dignity, or that you are going to survive at any cost. Well, we kind of knew that we're not going to survive. Therefore, we're going to make our deaths count. Nobody was allowed to move at all. I did. Alma had a boyfriend, and this was very, very important, because when she and her boyfriend were busy talking, she wouldn't pay attention to me.
היה בלתי אפשרי עבור אסתושה להבריח החוצה אבקת שרפה, משום שהיא וחברותיה עברו חיפוש גופני בכל פעם שהן יצאו מהפולברום.
She would prepare the little packages of gunpowder in the amount of a ping pong ball, small. I would come in with 2 empty boxes. She would give me 2 boxes with garbage.
מולי מגיע מישהו. אלוהים אדירים. מה יהיה אם יעצור אותי ויתחיל לתשאל?
Of course I was terrified. I was panic-stricken. We were terrified of the consequences, but not terrified enough not to do it.
So this was like the beginning of the thinking of the animation, and the channel was very thrilled about it, because it's not a lot, now it's a lot more common to do animation with films, but it was like maybe a startup. And so there were really good comments on that, so we moved along and did that. And also I wanted to maybe think about the end of the story, about, because this film is so horrific and so terrible, and the ending is so tragic. I wanted to do something maybe a little more optimistic at the end. So that's why I wanted to take the Anna story about the ice cream, which is for me such a relief, and it means to me that no matter what happens, war always comes to an end. And I'm saying that now here in Israel, which is a very horrific times. We have the hostages in Gaza still, 30 of them, and we wish the war would end so. And I'm thinking about Anna, about after the war, sitting with her friend Marta and eating ice cream, and I really want the war to end here in Israel also, and the hostages to come back, and to feel a little optimistic also about the future here in Israel. So this is why I wanted to end also the film, but also this clip tonight for the wonderful ending of Anna Heilman words.
When I was in the union, next to me at the table where I worked was a Belgian girl by the name of Róza Robota. When you sit and the work is monotonous, you talk. What do you think you talk about? You talk about food. And she was telling me, the best ice cream in the world is in Belgium. Good. Comes liberation time. Marta says she wants to go to Czechoslovakia. What's the point? She wants to find maybe somebody of her family survived. I said, listen, I don't have to go to Poland. I know that mine didn't. You will find your relatives. Let's go to Belgium first. Let's try the ice cream, then we'll go back. So went to Belgium. I had ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and supper for a long time.
One little last thing I'll say, that I told you that the film is in black and white, but there is just the pink, which was the dancing shoes of Astosia when she was going to the Appellplatz, to the hanging, and then to make the closure, it was the ice cream also in pink of her memory. So thank
Wonderful.
you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Noah, and thank you for taking on the telling of this story and the ones you are now currently preparing for Israeli television. And now let's welcome Alan Malenbaum, the cousin of Róza Robota, herself. Alan?
Thank you, Judd. Thank you for having me here today and for your overly generous introduction before. I'd like to talk a bit about the story of the four heroines from a slightly different perspective, a more personal one. When my cousin Róza Robota was hanged by the Germans in Auschwitz, we, that is her family here in the United States, knew nothing about her. I was an elementary school student, and I'd been following the war in Europe in the newspapers and in publications from the OWI, the Office of War Information. And I knew that the letters with those strange Polish stamps that I used to collect that my grandparents received, they had stopped around 1939 or 1940. When I asked my grandparents any questions about our family in Europe, they were just silent. It was just simply too painful for them to discuss. So I stopped asking. By around 1993, 94, my 5 children had grown up, my mortgage was paid off, and I finally had the time to start looking into my family roots. Computers were still rather primitive, and I was trying to find my grandmother's shtetl, her hometown. I recall that in Yiddish it sounded something like Chechanova, but the maps indicated that it could have been any one of almost a dozen towns. Well, something, I don't know exactly what, guided me to the Jewish encyclopedia. And I started to check the entry for each town. There, my eyes were drawn to the entry for a certain Róza Robota. I had never heard the name before, but I believed that my grandmother's family birth name was Roberta, and this sounded very similar. So I would have asked my grandparents, but by then they had passed away and there was nobody to ask. Um, However, I had a lot of old family photographs, and through one of them, I managed to trace members of the Robota family to Australia. There in Melbourne, a distant cousin, a Robota descendant, had done considerable genealogical research, which he kindly shared with me, and I was able to establish my relationship to Rosa. It turned out that my father's, that is Rosa's father's in Tikhanouf and my father in Brooklyn were first cousins, but they had never met. They didn't know one another. So Rosa, or Shoshana Robota, was my second cousin. And, for reasons that I still don't fully understand, I was motivated to begin research into the Shoah in earnest, especially the neglected stories of Jewish resistance. I discovered that Jews did not, as so often portrayed, walk like lambs to the slaughter. I discovered that the Jews fought as partisans throughout Europe, usually in all Jewish units, since the Polish and many other groups refused to accept any Jews as fighters or for any reason. I discovered that in every transit camp, in every extermination camp, in every work camp, and in every ghetto which the Germans established, there was some form of Jewish resistance. I also learned that without the massive Jewish contribution, from privates to seamen, from generals to admirals, the Allies might not have had the necessary manpower to win the war against the German Axis. And finally, I learned, unfortunately, most of the Jewish community of Tikhanouf, Rosa's hometown, had been taken away in 2 transports. And every member of the Róza Robota family had been murdered, except Rosa. She had been selected as a slave laborer in Auschwitz. She was tattooed with the number 24961 and assigned to one of the Bekleidungskammern, huge warehouses where victims' clothing was sorted and cleaned and packaged for transport back to the Vaterland for use there. Now this place called Auschwitz in German, Oswiecim in Polish, what was it really like? Well, I can't describe it, but a dying slave laborer expressed it in this way to his comrade who fortunately survived. If all the trees in the world became pens and all of the oceans turned into rivers of ink, one could not write down and fully document what happened in the Holocaust. Now, we've all seen photographs of one or another tiny section of the camp. Some of us have even visited the sprawling Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum, which, by the way, is only a fraction of the size of the original camp. But we really don't understand that Auschwitz refers to a series of dozens of sub-camps and factories spread out over the Germans' Interessengebiet, or zone of interest. Now, this varied in size from year to year, but at its largest, it was reported to have an area greater than 25 square miles, larger than the entire island of Manhattan. Many respected German firms had made a fortune there, profiting from the unpaid work of Jewish slave laborers. By the way, these companies did pay the SS a rental fee for using the slave laborers. And they used this blood money to get started again after the war. Now, Auschwitz was not only a work camp, that was really secondary. It was also an assembly line of death. There were 4 large crematoria in Birkenau. Each of the four crematoria had a massive gas chamber, and each had 5 furnaces. And each furnace was able to consume 12 bodies every 20 to 30 minutes. Altogether, they turned more than 11,000 human bodies into ashes and smoke every 24 hours. But when that wasn't enough, they also had a separate gassing house off on the side and several elaborate burning pits hidden behind crematoria 5. The men who were forced to do this ghoulish work were members of a detachment called Sondercommando, which means special unit. They were almost always Jewish prisoners, and for some reason often Greeks, who were themselves exterminated and replaced every few months. Very few of them survived the war. In October 1944, they learned from the underground that they were soon about to be replaced. As the Sonderkommando Philip Müller later recalled, towards midday, Scharführer Busch and Unterscharführer Gorges and several other SS men and guards arrived in the yard in front of Crematorium 4. All prisoners were ordered to line up, with the exception of 14 who were away on their various jobs. And then the men of the Sonderkommando gave the signal for the long-planned revolt to start. The uprising wouldn't have been possible, however, without the months of preparatory work by a handful of women who worked in the Pulverraum, the powder room, where artillery shell fuses were carefully assembled. There, they inserted precisely weighed amounts of this Schwarzpulver, or black powder, into each shell. And at the request of Noach Zabludovich of the Jewish Underground, who knew my cousin, Róza was able to recruit a few, very, very few, carefully selected, courageous young Jewish women who managed to steal a few grains of the precious material every day and turn it over to Róza. Now, this Schwarzpulver was made into crude grenades by a Russian prisoner of war named Borodin, and these grenades or explosive devices were used to destroy a crematorium complex. The work of these heroic women had made the Sonderkommando uprising a success. But the Germans, they were enraged. After weeks and weeks of investigation and some reports of a possible betrayal by one woman to her lover, who was an SS spy, Róza was arrested along with other women and tortured continuously. Now, Róza was the only one who knew the names of the men in the underground, but she revealed no names to anyone still living. And finally, on January 6, 1945, Róza and 3 of her fellow prisoners were hanged at roll calls, 2 of them in the morning roll call, and then 2 of them in the evening roll call. So we honor the memory of these brave, courageous Jewish heroines, Róza Robota, Alina Gärtner, Regina Safirsztajn, and Estera Wajcblum, all of whom died al Kiddush Hashem as sanctified martyrs. In 1994, I created the Róza Robota Foundation, and again, without really knowing how. Somehow I found myself organizing a 50th anniversary commemoration in Auschwitz. I really didn't know what to do or how to do it or how to finance it, but somehow I was guided through the necessary steps. I recruited a large honorary board of distinguished supporters, senators, professors, a scholarly nun, a baron, many others. We also had a group of former slave laborers from several continents who attended, including Anna Heilman, Lydia Vago, and others whose names are lost to history. The guest speakers at the site included Rabbi Shudrich of Warsaw, who was Poland's chief rabbi, the local bishop, the mayor of Ciechanów, officials of the Polish government, American and Israeli and Polish professors and historians, and myself. At the indoor ceremony, I had the privilege of reading a special message from the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, and a proclamation by governors of several states, as well as an historical commemoration in the official congressional record. Meanwhile, we were able to listen to the Polish military band playing Hatikva. It was the first time they ever had heard it or played it. And a military honor guard that remained at attention throughout the ceremony in front of the destroyed crematorium. Now, I spoke to the assembled guests from all over the world about Rosa's early days before the German invasion. I spoke about her once prominent family and their disappearance in the smoke and ashes of the German death machine. And I ended with a pertinent quote from our ancient biblical prophets from the book of Joel, to which I was somehow directed. I had never seen it before. Hear this, you elders, and give ear, all you inhabitants of the land. Was there ever such a thing in your days, or even in the days of your ancestors? Recount it to your children, and let your children tell their children, and may their children tell future generations. And that's what we're doing today. Finally, I was given possession of the Cross of Auschwitz, awarded posthumously to Rosa by the government of the Polish nation. And the following year, Yad Vashem in Israel erected this memorial statue in memory of the women heroes of the Auschwitz Revolt. In Brooklyn, the Holocaust Memorial Park in Sheepshead Bay created a memorial stone for Rosa on which they carved her last words that were written in a note to her friend Noach before her execution. Chazak v'amatz libecha, be strong and be brave. In 1996, at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, I was honored to receive, together with Anna Heilman, the Medal of Resistance to the 4 heroines. 2 years ago, the Róza Robota Foundation spent several months working with the Auschwitz Museum officials to hold another commemoration. We eventually ironed out all of the myriad details with the several departments involved, but at the last minute, the museum director canceled our plans with the irrational excuse that they didn't have sufficient room for this Jewish commemoration. Now, we know, of course, that much larger events are routinely held there. Oswiecim is still Auschwitz.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much indeed. Both of you have told us amazing stories, Noah bringing us in film, and Alan being so close to Rosa herself and the events, and then studying them in such detail. Thank you so much. Well, folks, be sure to start entering any extra questions. I see we have a lot. So we may not get to all of them, but enter them into the chat. And meanwhile, Olivia is going to offer us some announcements.
Okay, so I wanted to let you know what we have upcoming here at the Sousa Mendes Foundation for the month of September. We have 2 programs in September, one on September 14th, and then one on September 28th. So we always have these stories of rescue, resistance, and hope, but we tell different kinds of stories within that general category. So for our program on September 14th, we're talking about refuseniks trying to leave the Soviet Union right at the very beginning of that process, right around 1970, late 60s, 1970, early 1970s. It's a film, and it's a subject called Operation Wedding. Basically, these refuseniks, at the height of the Cold War, they were trying to get out of Russia. As they wanted to live as Jews. So they actually hijacked a plane, and the ruse was that they were going to a wedding. So it became known as Operation Wedding. They were all apprehended. They served long prison sentences, but the action itself and then the trials made the newspaper, not only in Russia, but internationally. It cracked the Iron Curtain, really for the first time. And people here in the West started to learn of what was going on behind the Iron Curtain. And from there, things mushroomed until in the 1980s, finally, there was a big flood of emigration from the Soviet Union. But so we're telling the story that's at the very origin of the refuseniks history. And it's a film told by the daughter of 2 of the people who were on that plane. So that's on September 14th, and you won't want to miss it. Operation Wedding. Then 2 weeks later, we are looking at a story in the United States, and we're looking at the radio journalist Walter Winchell and his efforts to combat the German-American Bund, which was the American equivalent of the Nazi Party that was rising in influence and so forth. So Walter Winchell used his platform to hasten their defeat. So that will be on September 28th, and I hope you'll sign up for both of those programs. And now we're going to see a little trailer of the film Operation Wedding.
When I was 25, my mother told me, "You know, when I was your age, I was already in prison."
Ну, это не Шанс-Элизе.
זה אתה שלך? בלי חלון, בלי כלום?
בלי חלון, כן. החוקר אמר, תבלי בנעימות. רגע, אל תבכי, שישראל.
לא, תהיי. I grew up free. I grew up in Israel. In the free world, my parents are heroes. But in Russia, they still call them terrorists.
In Leningrad, 11 Russians, most of them Jewish, are being tried on charges of trying to hijack a plane out of the Soviet Union last June.
It's the same if you try to escape from the Nazist Germany. You are a hero or you're a crime.
Crime is a crime. It's a scandal.
It's a mistake to call it a hijack because it wasn't. It was an empty plane.
פחד ושקר וצביעות וסבל.
It's better to be arrested, but maybe after the prison they will give us possibility to leave this country.
They wanted to steal a plane and get away, and it actually woke the world up.
Let the media see, let the whole world see. Liberté.
Okay, I received this sentence as I expected and tried to control my feelings. not to show that I am afraid.
Mister, I want you to know that you, needless to say, are always welcome here. I only regret that.
We all have one fate, one hope.
Танцевала вальс, чтобы и вот так вот я кружилась. И так вспоминаешь свою прежнюю жизнь в свободе.
So I certainly hope you will join us for these programs. Now, Judd, please take it away for the audience questions.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. There are a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to do them in kind of chronological order if I can, but also with some clarifications. First of all, someone has asked where are the interview clips from where did the interview clips come from that NOA used in her film? And NOA, you may have another answer. I would just want people to know that you can go to YouTube, to the University of Southern California, USC, Shoah Foundation channel, and you'll be able to see playlists with full survivor testimonies. I don't know if it's everyone. My uncle's is there from Hungary and Auschwitz, but that's a place to look. NOA, what source did you use to get the...
I used, of course, Yad Vashem in Israel and Jerusalem, and also the Washington Museum, and also the Spielberg testimonies.
Yes, the Spielberg Foundation Shoah Foundation has, of course, wanted these testimonies to be available widely, not to be in some, far off or hard to access place. So they are at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. They have the entire collection, and other places do. But if you really want to see something easily, try YouTube. Let's see the next question. Someone asks, Anna said that the prisoners knew that the Russians were advancing. How did the prisoners learn about, know what was going on in the course of the war and the outside world? I know the answer to that, but...
yeah, go ahead, Judd. It's okay.
I should go ahead?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Auschwitz as three main camps had administrative units that were manned by non-Jewish prisoners, and they had better conditions, and therefore they had better access to information that they could smuggle out. And so it would have been them who would find out and let the camp underground know what was going on. And most likely, the administrative units for Auschwitz-Birkenau itself knew when the Sondercommando units were going to be liquidated. One such person in the administration was Hermann Langbein, whom I knew. Hermann Langbein wrote many wonderful, important books about Auschwitz-Birkenau and historical issues. But he was actually arrested as a Spanish Spanienkämpfer, as a man who took part in the Spanish Revolution, and then was in Germany. And believe it or not, the Nazis also rounded them up, seeing them as anti-fascists, and therefore they should be arrested. What Hermann kept secret from the SS was that he was actually a Jew. Okay, let's see, another question. Several people asking what happened to the executioner. Do you know that, Noah? Alan?
Yeah, I do know that. Yakov Kozalnik, he went to Israel, and then there were a lot of rumors that he was a capo and he was a hanger, and they wanted to give him a trial. And there was a lot of rumors, and he was really ashamed, and he was banned in Israel. And he was married to some woman, and he had a child, but she divorced him after she heard what he's done. But his name was cleared, but it was too late because they were already divorced, and he didn't find any work here in Israel. And then he left to be some kind of a coach wrestling again, something that he did before the war. And he was just he died alone and shamefully, because he did a very big. He was very helpful for the Jews, and he hated the Poles and he hated the Germans that were a collaboration with the Nazis, and he was a good man for the Jews, but his name was trashed. That's what happened to him, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, thank you for that information. And that brings up such controversial issues. For example, and I won't go into it, but the Sonderkommando themselves, I say correctly that they were so double-minded. Some say they should have, their choice was either to commit suicide or to do what they were doing. But we would have to put ourselves in their places, and things don't just happen just like that. Things evolve and people become inured to things. It's a very, the double bind is absolutely impossible. So this executioner would have been facing a similar kind of a double bind. Okay, there's another question. How long, I guess this is for Noah, how long was the interval between was it, I forget who it was, the woman who I think was no, the woman who arrived who when they were liberated and then they went to Belgium. I'm sorry. What was the interval?
How long was that?
Yes.
Maybe, I think maybe 1 month. But maybe Ariela Heilman, who's in the audience, can correct me if not. But it was 2 weeks before they left the camp. It was the hanging, and then there was the death march with Martha helping her and surviving because of that. And then they went to Belgium. So it was really very, very, very close to the liberation.
Yes.
And they stayed there a lot. And Martha actually got married there. She got a nice husband, and she married there. And Anna left to Israel, and then came to America, and then to Canada.
Very good. I would presume that they had to have some time to recover and
Yeah, they were in the hospital in
right.
Belgium, like for half a year.
Wow.
Like 6 months, something like that.
Yeah, what many people don't know is that when the inmates, prisoners were liberated, they were sometimes given by soldiers, meaning well, all sorts of food, and they simply couldn't digest it, and many of them died
And
from
they
that.
died.
Yeah.
And the fortunate of Anna, she was so sick she couldn't eat, and that's what saved her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Another person asks, Rosa and Estasia had family that survived. What about Regina and Alina? Did they have any surviving family members? Noah or Alan?
Maybe Alan, you know the question of the answer?
No, I'm sorry, I have no information on them.
Okay.
I still don't have information. We didn't get any information about those women.
We do have a correction here. Not a correction. We have a very helpful information. One gentleman says that it wasn't the Auschwitz prisoner who originated the poetic phrasing, "if all the trees were pens." He says this is from a Hebrew prayer, probably an old one in the liturgy, and the reference there is to express how small we are in trying to praise God, and he wonders if there's an irony here in the the prisoner having said that. I guess we wouldn't know unless we asked. Let's see. I'm going back to the chats because I had copied a number of them. Let's see. Give me a second, folks. Boy, there are a lot here. My father. someone is saying that family members who survived would not discuss things, and then they had to also do research to find out what had happened. And this is not unusual, and it's quite true. Immediately after the war, and for at least, I don't know, 20 years, Holocaust survivors were often called concentration camp. They were not. It happened in my family. Someone said, "Don't say anything to upset Allegra. She was in a concentration camp," as if it was something shameful. It was only when the notion of the survivor emerged as something to admire that people started to talk a little bit more about what they had experienced. Well, another thing that people have said, and I don't think we can get into this because it will resonate differently for everyone, but of course, I've noticed, and you all have, that that the execution of the women on October 7th, 44 resonates with October 7th, 23, the October 7th assault by Hamas. And that is a very complicated question, and we all have to deal with it ourselves. So it will resonate.
The uprising was on October 7th, but they were executed in January, right?
Yes, thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
Yes, the uprising was there's actually, now that you've clarified that for me, an uprising, in my opinion, an uprising in Auschwitz on October 7th, 44 cannot be equated to Hamas attacking Israeli people and slaughtering them on October 7th, 2023, because I do not consider Hamas to be resistance fighters in any way. They are members of an extremist and fanatical organization, and they have more in common with Nazi ideology than they would with anything else. But of course, the events that are happening in Gaza since then and the great suffering that is taking place is deeply concerning. And I know people in Israel as well as elsewhere are very much concerned about it and do make efforts to draw attention to it and try to figure out what to do about it. Okay, we're coming to the end. And so I think, yeah.
So I think it's time for some final thoughts. So Alan, what would you like to say in closing to our audience today?
I think it's important for everyone in the audience to realize that the Jews did fight back. That's the important concept to take away. Some were able to do it one way, some were able to do it another way, depending on the circumstances in which they found themselves. But there was active armed Jewish resistance to the German Holocaust.
Thank you, Alan. Noah, do you have final thoughts?
The first question that I said today is, how come I never heard about this resistance, the underground? And the answer is, in my opinion, is because it was the underground woman resistance. And we don't hear enough about women resistance and women history. And now this is because of Sabotage. It opened my mind, and I'm now doing a series, as you told Judd earlier, I'm doing a series about forgotten women in history. It's not only about the Holocaust. There will be one episode about the Holocaust, but mainly it's about great and courageous women who did a lot of things in the history of the Israel state before and after, and never heard of. And now I want to correct that story, as I did in Sabotage. I want people to know that there are she history.
Very good, very good. And we'll look forward to being able to see that as well. And my final thoughts are similar. Oh, by the way, another category of history we don't know about and don't pay attention to is that of the Roma, the gypsies, who were also persecuted and mass murdered by the Nazis. And we should tell their stories because they also participated in the anti-Nazi resistance. Okay, my final thoughts are that there are many unknown stories about the Holocaust, and many of them we will never know. They have gone down into the dark along with their potential storytellers. but there are still some that come to light. But for those that we know about as scholars, but the general public does not know, it's really our responsibility, if possible, to bring them to widespread attention, because these stories are not only for Jews, but they are for Jews too. But these are also for all of humanity, because Jews during the Holocaust resisted in ways that are so inspiring under such extremity that they can inspire all people anywhere. That's my final thought.
Wonderful. And I want to thank Alan on behalf of everyone everywhere for coining the term never again. We owe you a great debt of gratitude, and we can all fervently hope that that's the case. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. Thank you to Judd for moderating. Thank you to our audience. See you in September 14th. Be well, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.